Let's switch away now from the hub and AP and talk about some of the new server features that we're offering with the new 4.12 release. So a lot of these improvements are centered around monitoring and administration. Server 4.12, our developers went into it with the idea that we really wanted to add some improvements, particularly to monitoring, to help you answer questions like this. Which jobs are running, what's their current status, what schedules are out there being used, which one of those schedules are active, how are the different executors within my executor groups being used, what does their load look like in terms of CPU cores or memory. Is there a way that we could be able to access that information from the web browser with a nice interface? So that's what we're trying to do, answer those questions, just being able to log into KNIME Server and see some of that. And I'll show you some screenshots here in a minute of what I'm talking about. So some of these new features are now accessible to individual users where that makes sense for users that want to be able to check on their own jobs or their own schedules. Administrators, of course, can see everything as you would expect. So look at some of the new features here. One is the configuration page. So this is going to allow you to manage your KNIME Server configuration directly from the web portal without having to go, find the EPF file or the INI file that's out there on the server and edit it with a text editor. You can now do that from the web portal. And what's nice is it gives you, for each of the options that you may want to change, you get a nice little concise description. I don't have to go digging around between this screen and the documentation to understand what things do because it's all just kind of right there in front of me. The other nice thing is most of these settings, not all but most, can be applied at runtime. So if I make a change here, I'm not going to have to reboot my server in order for it to be applied. I can just make the change and go about my business. One nice thing about having this functionality available is if it so happens that your KNIME Server administrator is not an admin on that particular machine, they can still go in and make the changes here without any restrictions. The new jobs page is worth showing as well. If I want to look and see at all the different jobs that are going on my server, you can see we took a screenshot of one of our servers where there were 411 recently run jobs. That's quite a few. I can do things like filter by users, seeing who's running what. I can see what the job states are associated with each individual job. And then also I can look at the individual error or warning messages that may be popping up just by mousing over to give an idea of, this one failed, why did it fail? This one's waiting on something, what's it waiting on? I can see that at a glance just by looking at this status screen. And of course, there's advanced table controls for, doing some additional filtering and deep dives. So just trying to help you as an administrator keep a better eye on what's going on your KNIME server. For scheduling, which scheduling is a key part of KNIME Server, right? We have an additional page here that's going to allow you to list the jobs associated with each schedule. I can actually activate or deactivate the schedule just with the flip of a switch if I want to. I can see any jobs that are associated with a particular schedule and what their status is. So whether they've completed or not, again, whether they failed, whether they're waiting on something. And look at the individual workflow jobs. So again, just an easier way to dig into what's going on. You may remember the tree view that we had before with KNIME Server, where you kind of had to click through several different levels of the tree to see this sort of stuff. Now it's a little bit more at your fingertips. We also have an executor administration page where you can group by the different executor groups that you may have, and then look for each executor. What are the jobs that are currently running or recently run on this executor, what their status is, of course, and then what's the load on this particular executor in terms of memory usage, CPU, how many tokens are devoted to it, and what version of analytics platform is associated with it. This is maybe not the best screenshot because this is only showing one executor on the page. If you have a really big server with lots of different executors, of course, you're going to see these all at once, and you can scroll down and check the status of each of them individually. And then just another quality of life thing, the ability to get at your log files in a little bit more accessible way. So, sometimes you want to see, hey, what happened on Tuesday at 4 o'clock? We know something failed and we had a really weird stack trace or error there. here you can just use the little calendar dialog to filter to a particular date range. Also nice if you're dealing with our support team and they're asking for log files from you, you can just set that range, download it, and send it to whoever it needs to go to. Some other stuff here that we have put at more of a glance. You can see what's going on with your license a little more easily if you need to. How many users are supported with your current license? How many consumers? How many cores are allocated for your license? And how many of them are currently being used? If you get a new license from us and you need to upload it, you can just click on the button and you'll be prompted to upload it. So a lot of this kind of administration stuff is now easier to see and easier to use as well. Something else worth mentioning is the RabbitMQ high availability. So we introduced support for RabbitMQ high availability in 4.12. What is RabbitMQ? It's the messaging broker service that basically tells, the Nime server is telling the executors which jobs they need to run. So this is kind of directing traffic, so to speak. The high availability version of this is going to let you specify more than one RabbitMQ instance as the message broker. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's a failover prevention, right? Or, well, it's failure prevention. It enables failover so that if you have multiple RabbitMQ high availability, if one of them happens to go down, then the Nime server and the Nime executors that are connected to that can switch over to the new queue, and you're not going to notice anything happening, right? There might be a short pause and then you'll be back online. Everything will be working fine. So why do we do that? RabbitMQ, the way that we had it integrated into the design before, was a single point of failure, and we wanted to eliminate that single point of failure. So now your Nime server is going to run even if RabbitMQ, for instance, crashes because you've got other RabbitMQ instances as part of the high availability. This high availability idea is a really important theme for some of our customers, and we got a lot of feedback about that. So this is why we wanted to address it. Something else worth pointing out here now, some of you may have seen this slide if you've been in some of our previous presentations where we talk about scalability in the cloud. So you can use Nime Analytics Platform in the cloud. You can also use Nime Server, the different sizes that are available, small, medium, and large. And you can, if you're using the Nime Server, use it in a couple different ways. So you can use licenses with pay-as-you-go, which supports elastic scaling, right? If I have a really big job that I want to run and I need more executors, more CPU, more RAM to be able to support execution of that job or jobs, then I can scale up. I can pay for additional instances to support the processing of that. And then when they're not needed anymore, they shut down and they save me money. So that's one way that you could use Nime Server in the cloud. You can also use the bring your own license model, the BYOL, where you buy a license from us and you apply those licenses across different executors as you see fit. That's been available on AWS already and is now available on Azure. So that's something we've been working on for the past few months, and it's now available. And I think we had a question about that in the Q&A panel. Can you use Nime on AWS and Azure? Now the answer is yes, you can on both. So if you're interested in this, we actually have some other webinars that we've done, and there's some other pages on our website that directly talk about this, how this works. So I would encourage you to check that out if using Nime Server in the cloud is something that you're interested in doing. A couple more things here before I finish my section here. The community and partner extensions. In the latest version of the analytics platform, we've had our partners contribute some really cool new functionality. And one of those is our partner H2O AI. You may be familiar with their H2O driverless AI functionality, which allows you to basically submit data and have them build the model for you, do a hyperparameter optimization and tuning, and suggest to you what some appropriate models for deployment would be. We have several different nodes that we've built together in collaboration with them that will support use of driverless AI. You see some of those here. So you can now access and pre-process this data in Nime, send it to driverless AI directly. You can also take mojos or model objects that you've built with driverless AI and apply them within Nime. You can also run driverless AI experiments directly from Nime. So if this is something you're interested in doing, this just expands upon the functionality that we already have with our existing H2O nodes and takes it and goes a step further with the driverless AI offering. So thanks to H2O for collaborating with us on that. If you're more interested in it, we have an announcement blog that we put together, lots of documentation, and you can check it out on our partner page as well. One other extension that I wanted to mention was developed by our partner Redfield, and this is about text processing and NLP. So what they've done is they've created an extension with just a few nodes in it that's going to allow you to access BERT, which is an NLP tool, to be able to do these kind of deep learning tasks for text processing. So you can use their model selector to go and grab BERT models from the TensorFlow hub. Once you've selected a model, you can feed some text along with that model into the BERT classification learner to be able to do, maybe you want to do sentiment analysis or something on text. And then associated with the learner is also the predictor to apply the model that you've built. So these are pretty beefy nodes in terms of what they can do. Their NLP is pretty powerful stuff, and these allow for GPU processing because you really need it to be able to run these effectively. So if NLP is something that you're interested in doing with these TensorFlow models, this makes it a lot easier to do. There's not really any coding involved. You just feed in the text and the model from the TensorFlow hub. Check this out on the Nime hub along with some cool example workflows that Redfield has built. Thanks to them for getting involved with building this extension. And with that, I'll stop because that's what we've got for today. I think maybe now it's time to answer some questions from you guys. Cynthia, did you have any that you noticed while I was talking?
Yes, and one that came up is that the CSV reader node doesn't seem to possible to force the type to be string. And that is correct. We are aware of that, and we are planning to add that functionality on the next release, and the summer release.
Okay, there's a question here about Power BI. Any plans for integration with Power BI?
Yes, we do already have a Power BI node, and that is under Labs. If you search under Labs, there's a send to Power BI, and you can send files. So if you don't see it, let us know. But yeah, it should be, I think it's installed by default, but you can try to install it again. It is available.
There's one question here that asks about the file handling framework, and in particular, the new file handling framework. He says he felt the lack of the possibility to rename files and folders, which is something we had with the old copy and move files from the old framework. I guess what I would say about that is we're still working on putting the final kind of finishing touches and the polishing on the file handling framework. So if you run into things like missing functionality or things aren't working quite like you would expect, please let us know. I mean, certainly we can relay your question from the webinar here to the development team and make sure that they're aware, but I also know that the devs are working to put some additional finishing touches on this. So come tell us about it on the forum if something doesn't seem right or if it's not as easy as it used to be, and let us help polish those sharp edges and get the file handling framework into a really good usable state for you. Let's see here. Will there be languages for BERT models other than Portuguese and English? I'm not sure off the top of my head what those BERT models support. I've only played around with them in English myself. I suspect that would depend on what models are available on the TensorFlow hub. So I don't have a good answer for that off the top of my head. Maybe we could check on that and follow up. It's worth pointing out, I guess, at this point, whenever we get questions during webinars like this, we will have a forum thread in our resources section on our forum where any questions that we're not able to ask or answer immediately, we'll talk to some folks who know, figure out the answer, and get back to you on the forum after the fact. So that's definitely one that we can check on. Let's see what else we've got here. Are there plans to support multiple Python conda environments to be picked on a by node basis? I believe the answer to that is yes. I'm not sure what the status of it is. So that's another one that we can check on and get back to you about. I know that we recently implemented something like that for R, for example, where you can have a different R home associated with different nodes. And so I think we're headed that direction for Conda environments as well, Python. Any other ones you see here, Cynthia?
Yeah,
You'd like
there's
to
one
answer?
that if we could demonstrate sharing a private space on the hub. I have the hub if you want to. I assume that means adding a user to the private space, and I can demonstrate that unless you have the hub ready.
No, go ahead if you would.
Okay, let me share my screen. And Office. Okay, so I'm logged in to the hub, and I've created, you can create namespaces from the Analytics platform or within the Nime hub. So if you go to the spaces, I have a private project right here called Nime Project 1. And I can click on it, and I already have Jamie, I think, on my, I have shared my project with her, or my private space. So I can then add another one and select Scott. I think it's Scott F. Click add, and that will add Scott and save changes. So pretty easy to do that. And you can just keep adding. I think that right now, yeah, you can add as many here on the list. Okay.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward to do. Definitely go play around with that, adding new spaces and adding users to the spaces. And if you have additional feedback for how you think that might work, we'd be happy to hear that. Here's a question here. Is there a way to change which groups a user is assigned to on the Nime server directly in the new web portal? I didn't show a screenshot of that, but there are server and group pages in the new interface. So I believe the answer to that is yes, after the user has been created, but I'll double check on that before I definitively say yes. Let's see, this one we answered about the Conda environments. Marcus asked, will there be a dedicated H2O AI auto machine learning node in the future? I don't know. We'd have to, I guess, talk to our devs and talk to our partners over at H2O AI about that. If that's something you'd be interested in seeing, we can definitely relay that up the chain to see what might be possible there. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure. What else do we have here? Maybe have time for one more here, Cynthia. When will the new versions be available on the Azure portal?
As a marketplace?
Presumably. I guess we should follow up on that one too.
Yeah, I don't want to say it. I know they're coming soon, but I don't have the exact date, so I don't want
to. I mean, if I would have thought that they were there, but if they are not, then they will be soon. We can check with our folks and post that on the forum and get an exact date for when those are ready. Okay, I think that's probably it in terms of questions. Thanks everybody for coming out. Again, if you have a question that we're not able to get to, please come interact with us on the forum. Of course, also regular social media channels, so that we can make sure that information gets relayed to the developers. But thanks for your time. Hope you learned something today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody.
Thank you everybody. Have a good day.